Is the meat industry really sustainable? To answer this question, we have to explore three different levels of sustainability: society, economy, and environment. Society includes culture, history, and quality of life. Economy includes productivity, employment, business and tax burden, and environment includes pollution, habitat preservation, and air and water quality. True sustainability is achieved when we can prove to be sustainable in all of these aspects. The questions we must ask ourselves are: which of these aspects can be considered sustainable with regard to the meat industry, and which aspects within the meat industry seem not to be sustainable given the way the industry currently operates? Within the U.S., the meat industry does not seem to be a sustainable system when analyzing U.S. culture and history. In the U.S., we have a history of increasing demand for meat and clearly have developed a culture that places very high demand on meat consumption. It is nearly impossible to walk through any urban area without being bombarded by brand names that play into the large-scale meat production industry. On BU's campus alone, you can see Chipotle, McDonald's, BurgerFi, and much more, all of which represent significant corporations that flourish because they rely completely on cultural demand for meat products. Because of this demand, companies like this in turn supply unfathomable amounts of meat, and in this way, U.S. culture and history has significant impact on the economic aspect of meat production. Of the top 50 fast food chains, all of them serve meat.
However, the aspect of health in the U.S. does not seem so sustainable. Our cultural demand for meat is resulting in negative diseases of affluence, like heart disease linked to obesity, strokes, cancer, and diabetes. In exploited countries, health risks are similar as in developed countries. But rather than diseases of affluence, people suffer from diseases of poverty, brought on by being denied access to land to grow food grain for their families. Quality of life for workers in exploitative meat factories suffer through low wages and brutal conditions. With respect to the economy, the meat industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry that provides countless jobs and has many other economic bolstering factors. More than 1 million jobs are provided in the U.S. from the beef industry alone. The jobs created by beef industry have a ripple effect on the economy. For every dollar of cattle sales, there is approximately $5 in additional business activity generated. Unfortunately, though, there are certain factors in the meat industry that are not economically sustainable. The productivity of farmlands is beginning to fall behind the logistic global population growth. Paul and Ann Ehrlich, aka Perlich, model of human ecology, discusses three characteristics of population, resources, and environment. With human population beginning to outrun our capacity to feed ourselves, it is clear, according to the Ehrlich model, our current food supply system is not sustainable and will need to shift emphasis away from meat production. With respect to the environment, while there are certain positive aspects of the meat industry, the innumerable negative aspects that impact the environment overshadow these positive influences.
As a result of the massive overproduction of meat products, air quality surrounding farms and beyond is negatively impacted. The amount of methane gas produced by cattle alone is devastating with respect to greenhouse gas emissions. Farms often dispose of cesspools holding urine and feces by spraying liquid manure into the air. This disposal method, along with the large amount of dust produced by feedlots every year, amounts to an introduction of many toxic emissions into the air. The sheer population density of livestock produced as a result of the economic response to cultural demand has a significant effect on our water. The EPA reports that chicken, hog, and cattle excrement has polluted 35,000 miles of rivers in 22 states and contaminated groundwater in 17 states. Between livestock feces spilling or seeping into waterways, the fish carcasses that result from the seepage, and from the antibiotic-laced fish food that seeps below fish farms have even caused the ocean floor to rot in certain areas. The meat industry is a significant contributor to the effects of global warming. According to Environmental Defense, if every American skipped one meal of chicken per week and substituted vegetarian foods instead, the carbon dioxide savings would be the same as taking more than 500,000 cars off U.S. roads. The government subsidizes corn production to feed cows. Cows are better fit to digest grass, though, so corn increases livestock gases and thus increases greenhouse gas emissions significantly. Perhaps most significantly, the environment is hurt by a general lack of energy efficiency in the meat industry. It takes more than 11 times as much fossil fuel to make 1 calorie from animal protein as it does to make 1 calorie from plant protein. There are many energy-intensive stages of animal raising, including growing the massive amounts of crops, transporting the crops to feed manufacturers, operating the feed mills, transporting the feed to factory farms, and much, much more. It takes more than 2,400 gallons of water on average to produce 1 pound of meat. Not eating 1 pound of meat, then, saves more water than not showering for 6 months. Animals eat very large quantities of grain, soybeans, etc., but they only produce a relatively small amount of meat product in return. To support meat production, more than 70% of grain and cereals we grow in the U.S. are fed to farmed animals. Unsustainable consumption livestock production accounts for more than 8% of global human water use. So is meat production sustainable? No. Social conditions and culture fuel high demand for meat, which our economic system responds to. This leads to social pitfalls in the realms of health and quality of life, and, while economically the meat industry seems attractive for employment, business, etc., it results in devastating effects on the environment in many different ways. The meat industry exists as a system that is self-sustaining, but ironically not sustainable in the long term. While cultural and economic factors recursively fuel the production of meat, a resulting negative impact on our environment ensures that this system will not survive for long without significant adjustments, most likely with respect to the global amount of meat consumption in the future.